What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we are here with Josh of Xael. Thank you so much for your time today, man. It's great to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So the first question is Bloodtide Rising is the new album. Was the intention of this album to kind of be like a continuation from what we heard on The Last Arbiter, or was this like a new beginning for Xael in a way?
No, actually, it does pick up from the last album. So in the last album, we end up in prison. We lost the fight on the first album. So the very beginning of this album, and the album does not. It's weird. Like pieces of the album take place not exactly in order. It's like flashbacks, but we are pretty much sold from the prison that we are sold. That so in the first album we're in prison, so we're sold off to this queen named Atala Avunir, and she's this descendant, pretty much god alien species thing, and she likes collecting rare things, weird things, and she heard about our characters. Our characters are called the Watchers of Zion, and she's like, you know what? I want these things in my collection. So they sold us off to her for economic, support from her because she has a really prosperous kingdom. Yeah, so that's where it picks up from. But it's a lot of crap.
Do you? It's not crap at all. I love it when bands have like these concepts and these stories in mind because it's one thing to make a really good album to listen to, which I thought The Last Arbiter. I mean, that album in 2018, I couldn't put that down. It was impossible for me to put down. Like, and then this is pretty much in the same vein of that. But like, do you think that your albums are almost kind of like Lord of the Rings? Should your albums be listened to chronologically, or could a listener approach you from any time period?
Well, that's what we try to do. We try to make it where you can just kind of jump in, but our stories at one time were way more elaborate because we created multiple planets and civilizations and languages. Even we went 210% nerd on this thing, and so we actually had to talk. Was like, how can we make this less crazy? It's music, we're not writing books, even though we were trying to write books. But so yeah, it's meant to be listened to in order, but we still try to keep that raw element that if you're just having a bad day and want to listen to something heavy, you got it.
Excellent, excellent. And like, being that you have these characters that are almost kind of like portrayed in the album in a way, are these like direct extensions of who you and the other band members are, or do you feel like you're portraying completely outside of your personal life?
Yeah, actually, so every story we write is a personal experience. So, it's pieces of the main character, Donner Mock. So technically, I started the band as a personal project, and then all the other members jumped in. It was awesome, and so now we all write. But the original character, which the music was about, his name is Donner Mock. In short, he's theoretically immortal-ish. He has an extended lifespan. So really complicated how this happened is it was something called the Crucible Titans, which he pissed off this alien god thing, and they pretty much tortured him, and they split the dimension into these pockets where they had this endless time loop, and they tortured him by ripping off his skin, very Greekish, and they, but he ends up escaping, and they put this artifact on his bones that allow him to regenerate. Well, the thing is, that means forever. As long as this dimension is functional, he will always physiologically exist, but his mental state does not get better. There's only so much computing power. So say he lives to be 4,000 years old, his brain actually starts going through like psychosis, and he starts breaking down. Eventually, his brain will kind of die, and he will just be this walking husk. But while he's alive, he's got some stories. And that character is kind of based on some of the experiences that I had, This album, whew. So we, me and some of the guys, especially we had some family issues. Some of us lost some family. Some of us went through divorce. And two of us are fighting for our kids just because that's what happens in divorces, and it's sad. And so secretly that's embedded into the story, but we told it in this very sci-fi, we're on a different planet. You have this goddess Atara. She's secretly got this parasite that's an other dimensional version of herself that latched onto her at birth, and it's trying to kill her. But there's a love story. He falls in love with her. It's the feeling that, say you love somebody, you love them knowing that there's something wrong with them, and one day knowing the pain that, listen, you're blinded by love, that they will turn into that other person and destroy your life. So that's kind of the secret that's behind this story.
It seems like you're able to tie it to your personal life, but you're also able to kind of escape your personal life with it as well. And that's not easy to do. Like, it's basically, you could almost look at this story to almost semi be historical fiction in a way.
Right, right. And then that's one of the things too. We had to almost go back with our stories and go, okay, something a little bit more digestible, because when it gets too deep, it's just too much, especially because we love like Elder Scrolls, Morrowind, and you always have lore within lore within lore. And at one point, it was so much that we were like, we got to come up with something a little easier, because we're getting confused.
Yeah, you go into all these different timelines. You're starting to be in contest. You're starting to be a contest with the Legend of Zelda series, because nobody knows what the fucking timeline is. Now, in terms of like the music, because throughout the course of music, there's always been many different concepts and many different stories, concept albums and all that. Why do you feel that with your style of music, that the type of music that you play is like the best suited for the concept?
Right. Well, metal's free. I think metal's a little more free than other genres. Even though you have your elitists. They're like, metal must be this way, and I'm like, no, metal was meant to not have boundaries. So, I personally, like, if you're talking about a planet exploding, if you're playing some country music when that's happening, that ain't gonna work. You need metal. You exploded a planet. You're like, grrr.
I don't know. Every time I hear a bar fight, I think of country music now from that scene from Terminator 2. Like, and okay. And country music makes me violent. So
I'm from the South, so it's very everywhere you go. Like I eat this diner called Fried Eddie's. You go in, and like everybody's like, I don't know, they look like they've been hit with sledgehammers and cow poop on their face. And you're sitting in there, and Travis Tritt comes on. You're like, we start headbanging to Travis Tritt, eating a sandwich. But y'all don't know what liver mush is, do you?
No.
Is that that's not up in the north?
No.
Y'all, what is it called? Liver pudding? Y'all have that?
You're
all right, down here.
What?
Yeah, we have something called liver mush down here. So we go to a diner and get some liver mush to put some mustard on it.
Well,
so
that's
but we digressed from the question.
Yeah,
we went from talking about alien species to liver mush.
Yeah, that's what happens in this podcast. But like in terms of like the metal style that you have, because like I could see Xael catering a lot of fans of like Amon Amarth, but I could also see people who listen to like Corpaclani appreciate your music, people who like Ansiferum, people who like Tyr, but also there's a lot of technical elements. I think people who like Obscura could really appreciate this, or Suffocation. So does everybody in the band have different like metal inspirations as well?
Oh yeah. Like one of my guitar players, he likes really aggressive stuff. He loves like Nile. Plus we have the bass player from Nile, so he's very that brings that really brutal and aggressive with a like technical influence. And then like our other guitar player, and he's a singer. He also writes the Reticent. He writes very emotional things, and that's one thing we want to capture, because you go to a metal show and you listen to pure death metal, you mosh, you have a good time, you go home, but it's not always the most memorable thing, But when you go to a show and you feel something, like you left with this feeling, because I remember seeing Flesh God, Apocalypse Live, and they had this really sad part, but it was blast beat, but the vocalist went to this really sad part. I remember sitting there and I got goosebumps, and I'll never forget that. Like, wow, that was pretty, right? So we're wanting to capture that. And so different members have different qualities, and we try to mix it together and then put the umbrella signature, because Xael has a slight tribal, thing that kind of goes over it. So we have some tech, folk, and then we bring it together in this, ooga booga tribal.
Yeah. Like, I mean, when I first heard The Last Arbiter, I was thinking Roots by Sepultura. I was thinking of everything by Amon Amarth. I was thinking of Flesh God Apocalypse. I was thinking of, black metal. Like, it almost seems like that this album could appeal to like a very broad different set of artists.
Right. And that was one of my roots. I grew up black metal. Like I love like Emperor and Mayhem and the older Demi Borgir and stuff like that. And that was like my roots. Except I grew up in the American South, so I couldn't really, like Norwegian, oh man, don't even. There are some bands that have that. You must be true cult black metal. And by the end of it, I was like, well, I love the music, but I'm from the mountains of North Carolina. It's a different culture here. So we just try to start feeling what we feel our own. Almost even integrating a little bit of the American folk. It's not quite in there exactly, but that's we're trying. We're trying to figure out how to represent some of our own roots in the metal.
I think so the best example of a band that's been doing that is Aether Realm, with Redneck Vikings from Hell. Did you hear that album yet?
Oh yeah. I know that they live right up the road here. They're from Asheville.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
like 40 minutes from.
Yeah. That album was like the most unique folk metal album. One of the most unique folk melodic death albums, whatever the hell you want to call it, like styles. And I think that you capture a similar thing, but what is unique is, I don't you don't need to dress up like Vikings, or you don't need to dress up in corpse paint or anything like that. I feel like you have your own story to tell that could take you into outer space. It could take you back in time, but can also take you into the future. Like, is there almost like a lot of research that goes involved with the making of your style as well?
Ooh, oh my goodness. So, because like I said, we're building our own universe. So it was kind of complicated. Kind of like you was talking about live. We were like, what are we live? So we actually think about like, okay, if you're in space, you're on a different planet, you might need a respirator. So one of the looks, and this so happened during the pandemic, you have to wear masks. And we're like, let's start integrate like these really cool like lower face masks that are like respirators, because we want to stay true. If different environments, you need different. You can actually alter what type of how much hydrogen to oxygen ratio to your species you need to intake to exist on this other planet. So we started even building this, like some of us have armor, like our singer's armor. So he's actually crafting our own armor. And some of our armor, it's more ornate. It looks, I don't know, like space elven. And then some of our armor looks more HR Geiger. And mostly people say we like Mortal Kombat characters, which is okay. I like Mortal Kombat.
You got to really shock people and dress up like Nintendo characters and really add to the diversity.
I'm gonna come out as Princess Peach. Black girls.
If you do that, I bow my head. That you're talking about pissing off the elites. That's how you do it.
Well, you know what? Just for you, I'm gonna do it. Mark my words.
Get your ass to New York first. But when it comes to like the songwriting process, so obviously, these albums are kind of like following a specific story arc. Do you think that maybe in the future you see yourself sticking to this forever, or do you think maybe you're going to deviate into other stories, either fiction or nonfiction?
Well, the whole reason we built a multiverse is that everything's possible in a multiverse. So that's what's cool. Is that so when we look at the future, we are definitely going to deviate probably from this story arc, but we want to go more odd. I guess a lot of bands are very historical. They talk about wars and stuff that are here. I love having being able to be imaginative, create your own world. And so we'll probably end up on another distant planet with a much crazier. We're talking about we have an idea, but we'll wait to see if it comes to life. But we're talking about this very advanced AI thing that happens, but it's not like robots and crap. We're looking at how, what is AI, a billion years of evolution? What does that look like? And what type of dimension, a pocket dimension within our dimension, could it create? And what is its effects? And these are things that we're wanting to kind of tackle. But yeah, a lot of the planets we end up still have this tribal feel, kind of like, like the Predator. The Predator is a interstellar traveling species that likes hunting and other creatures, and that's kind of our feel. We still have that tribal element, but yet different planets, different worlds.
Yeah.
So
You kind of also have like a little bit of a Fear Factory inspiration as well, I could tell, right? With the use of artificial
oh yeah,
intelligence.
that was probably like my first. Dude, I heard Fear Factory. It was in 1994. No, 1995 when they were on the Mortal Kombat soundtrack for the movie.
Oh,
And
demanufacture.
yeah, and I was very poor. I was a little kid, and I remember watching the movie, and I was blown away. And I remember, what is that sound when Scorpion's fighting? And that probably set the pace for everything in my life, from martial arts to music to the imagination. So
Can you maybe see yourself maybe writing stories about this, like maybe in comic book format or like maybe in other mediums as well? Because in the end, like, and not to discredit the role that it has in music, but what the best thing about Xael for me is that I love just getting lost into the music. I could listen to your music, like Green Eggs and Ham style, on a plane, on a train, on a boat, you name it. But like, I can enjoy that. But like, you really put in all your effort into this story too, and I don't think it should ever get lost just because of the desire for simplicity when listening to music. So, could you maybe see yourselves expressing this story through other artistic mediums as well?
that's why we're really focusing on videos. We don't have, we don't have a Hollywood budget, but actually in here, I'm building an entire video room just to finish the rest of the album. So we just finished Shry, because some of the songs were easier to do a quick video for, but the really complicated stories, I'm building a green screen room in here right now to finish shooting a video. So we're doing a video for every single song. Then we are doing a graphic novel. So I did this with our few minutes well. I made this really cool graphic novel, but then the band exploded. So I'm gonna do the same thing. So we're gonna have a graphic novel, hopefully by Halloween this year.
Oh wow, just in time for Halloween as well. Like that's a good time for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I love it when like bands like really are just so into their story that like they express it in multiple ways. Because Xael's not just a band, or it's just an experience now. It's an artistic endeavor. Like I can almost see you being like a network in a way that expresses many different fictional stories.
Right, right. And that's exactly what we're doing. Actually, the guitar player right now, he's developed a whole side story arc, which is really cool. And we're going to do an EP just on his story arc. And he's sitting down. He's a rather smart fellow, and he put together a really cool side story. So we're going to do an EP probably at the end of this year, just on his character story. So we're just wanting to keep building, adding to it, almost like you had the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The idea is, what if we can do that with metal? How can we make this expanded universe?
It'll be like a bridge between. Sorry if you don't like this analogy, but it'll be like Headbangers Ball combining with Nickelodeon.
I like Nickelodeon, so that's cool.
Damn right, I got the Avatar tattoos for a reason.
Yeah.
But before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. It's great to finally be able to talk with you after listening to The Last Arbiter and playing that shit to death for like maybe the last 2.5 years now at this point. Or 3 years, right? 2018, yeah.
Oh, we were so poor at that time to put out the album. We did the best we could, but this time we had a lot more.
That album was in my top list of albums towards the end of the year. So,
thank you very much.
Yeah. Is there just anything else with the band that you would like to promote? You plugged the graphic novel and maybe a possibility of an EP, but anything else going on?
Besides the videos, which is taking up most of our time, we're getting ready for live shows. Dude, our live show is going to be really cool. We're going to be bringing, we're going to have our unique armor. We're making specific stage props. So we're going to be bringing this. Not only is it, a lot of guys, they do the concept thing, but it's like if I see some space stuff, I want to see something that makes me feel like I'm in that universe. So we're going to be bringing this as a live action thing. So, and they can go to the website www.eldersverse, ELDERSVER, VERSC.com. And we're going to be posting more of the lore, and you can get shirts and crap like that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody. We are here with Xael. Be sure to check out their brand new album. Be sure to check out Bloodline Rising or Bloodtide Rising. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We will see you next time.